super important to us, the community, and his family, that we continue to do this to raise awareness, to talk about him, to keep his name alive. As some of you may know, the trial against the officers who killed him, the 5 officers, it will be October of this year, and we're going to need as much support as possible inside and outside of the courtroom. So obviously a call to action after this is to show up and to support the family through that process.
No justice, no peace, fuck 12. Take it to the streets and fuck the police. No justice, no peace, fuck 12. Take it to the streets and 9, 10, 11.
Fuck 12. All stolen lives.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Fuck 12.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Fuck 12.
No justice,
No peace.
no racist.
Police.
No justice.
No peace.
Justice for Jorge Gomez.
Fuck 12.
Fuck 12.
So that was just some protest chants that we were doing, some things we were just doing for Jorge's 5th anniversary. It has been 5 years since LVMPD murdered Jorge Gomez. June 1st, 2020 was the exact date. As y'all know, this is more than a podcast with more than a hashtag. And the purpose of this show today is to honor Jorge Gomez and his life and to talk about the truth, the real narrative of his murder. And also just talking about what a world without these police murders would be, what it would look like in our communities. And I always say that George Floyd sparked the movement for us. However, Jorge Gomez kept the fire going. And I also want to give a trigger warning for folks because we will be talking about police murder, shooting, grief, all those things. So if this is not what you want to hear or you're not prepared to hear, please tap out. But if you are okay with hearing that, let's get into it. Jorge Antonio Gomez, his passions were animals, the unhoused community. He believed in our First, Second Amendment rights. He was a vegetarian, and he just loved his community. He also cared a lot about the environment. What happened to Jorge Gomez? Jorge Gomez was killed June 1st, 2020, after protesting the murder of George Floyd. He was doing this downtown. He was shot outside of the federal building, Lloyd D. George Federal Building, and they shot around 19 shots at him. And the police originally said that they shot him because he raised his weapon at them. In Nevada, it is legal to open carry. That has always been a thing here in 2020, and still to this day, it's a thing that it's legal to do that. It's also legal to be protesting. And so he was within his rights, and he was murdered for that. They tried to tell us, oh no, he was raising his weapon. Footage came out 9 months later to prove that no, he did not raise his weapon. He was actually running away and was shot while he was running away. So I want to get into more details and who Jorge was as a person. And I just want to honor this space. Jorge was more than a hashtag, right? More than just justice for Jorge Gomez. He was a person. He was a son, a cousin, brother, an uncle. And today we are here with his parents. And I want to just let them introduce themselves. And I wanted to ask you guys, what's one thing you want people to know about Jorge?
Well, Jorge Antonio was out protesting for the community. Some people come to me and say, justice for Jorge Gomez. And I always say justice for all stolen lives, because he was out there protesting not just for himself. Obviously, he didn't know he was going to be murdered that night. He was out there protesting against police brutality, against police murder, and against racial injustice. Jorge Antonio was very community driven, as you mentioned. Growing up, he was always, it was like black and white to him. It's right or it's wrong. There was no middle ground. There was no gray area, So he always believed that, in the truth, as you had mentioned, he was a vegetarian. He was studying to be a veterinary pathologist. He was just a kind-hearted, humble soul.
You want to introduce yourself?
Oh, my name is Jeannie Lara. I'm the mother of Jorge Antonio Gomez. He was my middle child.
Uh, so I'm Renee. I met Jeannie in 2013,
2011.
2011. Oh, wow. I messed up that anniversary. So, she introduced me to her two children at the time. Well, three. It was three, but two of them were living with her, and one of them was Jorge Gomez and Jasmine. Um, then I moved in with her, and we decided to go to live in Orlando, and we ended up buying a house, and we all lived together. So I had a opportunity to live with him, mingle with him, know all his little quirks. Yeah, so I just wanted, a good family environment. Vegas kind of is not an environment to raise children because there's too many casinos, too many just adult life. And Orlando, when she said, "Hey, let's move over to Orlando," I'm like, "Great!" That's like, so the first thing we bought was like um a year thing for Universal. Then it was Busch Gardens. Then it was so every weekend we would just go to one of these parks, and just have that the naiveness of being a kid. And so it was great. It was awesome. Obviously, he turned 18. He wanted to go to college, and that's when he moved out. But I mean, other than that, I mean, he was just a great kid.
Yeah. Can you both tell me a moment that kind of captures who Jorge was? Like your favorite moment of him, memory that just captured who he was as a person.
I mean, I have a lot of beautiful memories of him growing up as a child, but I think that to answer your question is capturing him as a moment. I would think the 3 days that he was out there protesting, that just captures who he was. That captures what was important to him. It captures what he stood for.
Mm,
And it captures, me being a proud mom of him.
thank you.
Yeah. So even prior to him coming to Vegas, he was protesting where he was before.
Oregon.
He believed once George Floyd passed away, and he just believed in equality. He believed in just he was very passionate about police brutality and just the injustices. And he was just he would he would be texting even his grandmother about it. You don't understand, um, because she wasn't even living here. She doesn't live in the states, and you don't even understand how it is here. I mean, he was just very passionate about once this happened. He wanted even his dad to come to the protest, his sister to come to the protest. He just wanted us all involved. So at the time, we didn't even understand the big impact. We saw the news. Obviously, we see injustices happen, but sometimes it's like until it's in your backyard, you kind of don't really see the big impact of what's really happening behind the scenes and how everybody is covering um, when somebody passes away,
Mm,
Is murdered.
is murdered.
yeah. What brought him joy?
Animals. He just loved animals. Um, Anything in nature. He loved hiking and kayaking and cliff jumping, and anything in nature brought him joy. Peace,
Mm,
unity. He was always trying to unite people, and even our family, because I got divorced from his dad in 2003. So he was like the glue to keeping us all united, keeping us involved in each other's lives. But I think what brought him the most joy was just sustainability, animals, humanity.
My next question is, what did he dream about? Like, what was his dreams?
Personal dreams, he wanted to be a veterinary pathologist. Anything to do with animals really was something. He went from he wanted to be, a marine biologist to a zoologist to a veterinary pathologist. So anything to do with animals personally. His dream was always anything in sustainability, anything in. I remember him sending me, videos of why I should be a vegetarian, how they kill the animals and all that stuff. And his sister was a vegetarian, and he would call me and say, "Hey, so what do you guys make for dinner?" And I'm like, "Oh, I made her some ceviche." And he's like, "Well, what'd you put in there?" And I'm like, "Oh, I used the fake crab." And he's like, "Mom, do you know that contains 3% Pollock? Yeah, Pollock fish, things like that. But he was just very much into the sustainability, into unification, into anything with animals, um, anything that has to do with just being one together with nature.
You want to add anything to that?
I mean, if somebody was in trouble or somebody was in need of help, he would try to do anything to try to help them out. His cousin was in need of help. He would try to give him money, even if he was left with no money. Even if for the week he had to live in his car, he didn't care. He would just give him that last little change that he had. So it's like if anybody that he knew needed something, he would just try to do anything to help them out. And sometimes he was. We found out later in life that he would not have a place to stay because he gave all his money away. And he was staying in his car in like Washington where it's like freezing.
Oregon.
Oregon, I'm sorry. And and he didn't care. He was just so passionate about just helping people that he would just sleep in his car.
Yeah, he'd forego comforts so someone else could be okay.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Everything that you guys have like already told me and told the community is something that we try to embody in the work that we do. So anytime we try to, honor his birthday or his anniversary, we always try to do something like we did a cleanup.
Mm-hmm.
We did a cleanup downtown. We've done food shares, clothing drives for the houseless. Um, we've done just park days. We've done a lake day. Anything that he would have, loved to do if he was here, we tried to embody that in the work that we do.
He would have loved it.
Yeah.
He would have absolutely loved
Yeah.
it.
And I feel like he, you feel like the energy too. You feel the energy. Like it's always a good, positive day. Nothing terrible happens. Everybody's safe. Everybody's happy. Everybody's smiling. So, no, you're good. I do want to kind of switch it over. I wanted to open it up with like who he was before we even got into like what happened to him, because I think it's very important to humanize victims of police brutality and not just talk about what happened to them, because like I said, they're more than what happened to them. But I do want to get into that. So the night that Jorge was murdered, I wanted to ask y'all what do you remember about that day or night whenever you had found out?
Um, so I was in my room, and George, his father, called me, and it was probably around, I want to say 2 in the afternoon, 2:30 in the afternoon, my time. Again, Vegas is 3 hours earlier. It's Pacific, and I was in the Eastern time zone. So about 2:30 my time. And his father calls me and says, "Jeannie, are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, George, I'm okay. What's going on?" And this is weird because usually his dad doesn't call me. And he's like, "No, I need to know if you're okay." And I'm like, "Yeah, George, what's going on?" And he says, "They killed him." I'm like, "They killed who?" I'm like, "They killed Jorge Antonio." And I'm like, "What? What are you saying?" "The police killed Jorge Antonio." And I'm like, "I don't remember. I know that by what my daughter told me, I let out a scream. Um, I fell to the ground. My daughter Jasmine came running into the room. This is what's going on. And I'm like, I don't know, talk to your dad. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, they didn't kill him. I'm gonna go find him. He went back to Oregon because that was his intention all along. He was just in Vegas a couple of weeks because of COVID. He was living in Oregon. And I'm like, I'm gonna go find him. I'm gonna go find him. And my daughter's talking to her dad, and I'm trying to find the laptop because I have to book a flight. I gotta go find him. And I guess I don't know if it was me or Jasmine who called Renee, because Renee was out doing something or other.
It was you.
I called you.
Yeah.
It's like a blur, you know. And I guess I called her, and she was out changing a tire of her car and picking up my dog from the groomer. And I don't really remember much. The next thing I remember, I'm in a flight, and this is during COVID, so you all have to wear masks. And I'm crying. And the flight attendant kept on bringing me a new mask because mine kept on getting wet. And they were all on Wi-Fi, and they were trying to research what happened. And at first they said that my son shot a cop in the head at the circus. And I'm like, that's not Antonio. And then I guess they kept on looking. We land, um, pick up a rent a car. All the hotels are closed because of COVID. This is June 1st, 2020. We go to his dad's house, and his dad tells me, um, on Friday, I think this is Tuesday. His dad said on Friday we had to go to the sheriff's office or somewhere. They're going to show us videos. And I'm like, but where is he? Where is he? I didn't know where the body was. I didn't know where he was. Sorry.
It's okay.
And I'm like, I can't go there. I can't go there by myself because I don't know what they're gonna say, what they're gonna, I didn't trust anybody. And so I said, do we have anybody here that can go with us? One of your friends, a coworker. He's like, nobody that I trust like that. So I'm trying to find somebody. And I said, I'll pay an attorney for a day to go with us. And we go to one attorney's office and didn't like him. He's like, something about, they can't do anything, that they could take the case, but they officers are never held accountable in Vegas. And then another attorney reached out to my eldest son in Alaska, and my daughter, and he said, I was there that night. I was there when my Juan Antonio was killed, and to go to his office. And at this time it's like 5 o'clock p.m. I says, I don't know where I'm gonna make it there. He says, I'm staying here until you get here. And we probably got there like at 7 o'clock at night. And he's like, I was there the night. I was there that day he was killed. I didn't see it happen, but I was a legal observer, and I want to help you. We'll be there. We'll be there with you that Friday. So we go into wherever they tell us to go, and they left us outside for like an hour, and it was like 100 degrees in the sun. And then they take us into a room, and they're showing us videos of my son running away. And I remember this Lieutenant Floyd, I think Lloyd something, telling me, the officers that shot your son they're very distraught. Do you have any comforting words for them? I was so upset. Sorry.
You okay?
And I told them, I'm like, you tell them they killed a good kid. You tell them they murdered a good kid. And I remember the attorney just putting his hand on my shoulder and says, let's go. Let's go. They just try to manipulate you. They try to make you feel like it's your fault. And Juan Antonio did nothing wrong. It took 9-10 months to get some form of video. Now, but mind you, this happened in front of the federal building. There was like 21 cameras. There was like 20, 30 officers. We had to get the video from the D casino 2 blocks away, pixelated, because they say they don't have any cameras that captured it. You're trying to tell me that if an officer was shot in front of the federal building, that they would release videos that next day?
Mm. Before we continue, do you need a moment? Do you need a second?
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing all of that. I think the next question for us would be, what barriers have you faced when trying to get answers and transparency from LVMPD?
They don't give you any. They make it so difficult for you to even find out anything that happened. They told us if we wanted to get anything released that we had to file a lawsuit against them. I mean, it was months and months and months before we knew nothing. Social media posts one thing, and then they post something else. Then they retracted that he was the shooter because they found the shooter that shot the officer in the head. So it's like there's no videos to see what happened to my son. I don't believe the police officers because I know my kid. It's like you're lying. You're not talking about my child. You listen, and I say this a lot. You know your kids, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Not Jorge Antonio. It's just not who he is. It's not what he stood for. And I knew this kid inside and out. Now, if you're telling me that there was a child or if there was somebody elderly, he would have stood his ground.
Mm.
But for himself, he runs. He's not going to do anything. He's going to run away. And they're telling me, oh, no, he did this and he did that. And I'm like, show me. No, well, we can't show you. We don't have any videos that show that.
Yeah, and I think for the record, for folks listening, in 2020, like literally maybe what, like was it 30 minutes before Jorge was killed?
Mm-hmm.
There was another person who was unrelated to the protests that were happening. He wasn't even a part of the protests. He was actually trying to shoot at the protesters, but ended up hitting a cop in the head. I believe his
Mm-hmm.
name was Officer Shay Mickle, whatever. Ended up shooting him and paralyzed him. Or did he die? I'm not sure.
It was actually 5 minutes. It was 4.5, 5 minutes.
Oh, okay. My bad.
At the circus, a Hispanic male had shot Officer Shay Mikononis in the neck.
Oh, the neck. Okay.
And my son was at the federal building,
Which is not close.
3
at
miles
all.
away,
Not close.
on foot. And the next day, they found the actual shooter. It had nothing to do with my son. My son had just texted his dad like 3 or 4 minutes before he was killed. Hey, Dad, some streets are closed, but I'm on my way.
Yeah.
So he was heading back to his car. And the only reason his car was parked next to the, catty corner to the federal building is because his dad said, please park the car somewhere safe. So he parked it at the federal building, walked all the way down to Trump Tower, started protesting, went through Container Park. They had a dispersal order, and he was walking back to his vehicle. When he walked in front of the federal building, he was not on the steps. He was on the sidewalk, the public sidewalk where you walk, walking back to his vehicle. There's a crosswalk right in front to go over to where his car was parked. And that's where he was walking to. Officer John Squio decided that he wasn't walking fast enough because he had interlocked his hands in front of him and he was walking step to toe. First, so they could see he has nothing in his hands, and two, still in protest because he was still protesting, passively protesting, but he was still protesting. And he was at the stop, he was getting to the crosswalk, and Officer John Squio decided he wasn't walking fast enough and shot him with 5 less than lethal rounds. And we know that he was shot in the back with these less than lethal rounds because of the autopsy, because the less than lethal rounds leave a chalk, like a chalk substance, and they're almost like BB bullets, so they leave an indentation,
Mm.
So we know what happened because we hadn't a second autopsy done. So Excuse me. So we know exactly what happened. Now he doesn't know what's happening. He feels this. He decides to run the same way he came. Four patrol vehicles were across the street, and they were actually getting their tactical gear on because they were going to the circus to render aid to the other officers that were there, that the officer was involved in the shooting. So it was like 4 or 5 minutes in between. Now they see my son, they hear the less than lethal rounds. They see my son running, and they decide to shoot at him 19 times. You
Mm.
know, he falls. As he's falling, they're still shooting at him. An officer yells, "Cease fire," and they're still shooting at him.
Mm.
You know, if you ever go there, you'll still see the ricochet marks. He's lying on the ground. They go to him. They handcuff him. You hear people in the background, trying to that they're trying to give aid because there was like aid.
Street medic.
Yeah, street medics, and the police wouldn't let anyone close to him. They almost sort of like surround him. It took like 22 minutes for they allowed the ambulance to even reach him. When they get there, he still has a pulse. This kid is like so healthy, still has a pulse. He dies 45 minutes later at UMC.
Mm.
you know so not only did they murder him for no reason, they they didn't even render aid,
Mm.
and they wouldn't allow anyone else to render aid. So it's incredible. So to go back to your question, it's just the cover-ups, it's just the manipulation that they use to try and it's not just my son. It's not me. This is their MO. This is what they do.
Yeah.
you know
Um. Yeah, two things came to mind. The first one being because you said they were on their way to Circus, but then they see a Hispanic male running. Do you believe that they believe that he was a part of that? I don't know how, because like we said, it was far apart. But
I mean, come on. I mean, you're talking about 3 miles away within 4 or 5 minutes. I mean, even I think even the fastest runner in the world can't make that.
right, but do you think that that's what they thought? Because we
I
know they're not that smart.
No, they're not. I mean, John Squeal came off the line of Chipotle, killed 2 people before he decided to. Come on. These are not the brightest.
Yes.
So I mean, I don't believe that. I believe that they were angered
Mm.
because one of their own was shot, that they wanted to take it out on the community. That's what
Mm.
I believe.
And that's fair. I mean, either way it goes, it still was fucked
Murder.
up. Yeah. I think. Oh yeah, John Squeal. Let's talk about John Squeal because John Squeal killed two other people before he killed Jorge Gomez. It was
Mhm.
Brian Keith Day and Rex Wilson. Killed those two. He was still on the force. Killed Jorge Gomez, and maybe what was it? 2 weeks later,
2.5, 19 days.
19 days later, he gets in a bar fight and he bites somebody's face. And that's why he was fired from LVMPD.
He wasn't actually even fired.
He was let go.
He was offered the opportunity of resigning.
Oh, so he resigned.
So he could
Because
work
of the
at
bar
another
fight, though.
force.
Mhm.
But because of the bar fight, not because of the 3
Mm-mm.
murders he was involved in.
Mm-mm.
So that just goes to show, like, anybody could be hired as a police officer. And like she just said, he had a GED, working at Chipotle. Like, lawyers, doctors, nurses had to go to years and years of school for their career, but police officers go to a 6-week academy, 12-week academy, and boom, there you go. Here's a badge and a gun. So yeah, it is wild to me. And then also the autopsy report.
Mhm.
I really, really wanted to bring that up because I feel like, because you guys showed me their original coroner's report that LVMPD had
Mhm.
conducted, and I remember in their coroner's report, what stood out to me was they put in there was this male laying there with graffiti in the back saying Black Lives Matter, and like it was like, why would you put that in a coroner's report? What does that have to do with anything about like what? It was just wild to me. What are your thoughts on?
Well, and it's not just Vegas. The medical examiners are very interesting because what ends up happening is, at least here in Vegas, the FIT team, the field investigation team, is actually in the autopsy location, or the wherever they do the autopsy. They're in there with the medical examiner, telling them oh, this is where the bullet came in. This is where
Mm.
the bullet came out. So it's not the medical examiner that's actually writing, doing the examination. And you could tell, an entry wound and an exit wound, especially
Right.
with these type of calibers that they use. I mean, entry is small, exit's huge. I mean, it's just the way it is. It destroys your body. So they're trying to create this scenario that he's facing them, you know, so that they could justify that they killed him because he was coming at them,
Mm.
you know. And I mean, if you see the video that finally got released, it's nowhere to be true. He's running away from dear
Right.
life. So one of the attorneys said we need to do a second autopsy. We need to do a second autopsy. And sure enough, the second autopsy was done, and the entry wounds were not the entry wounds, they were the exit wounds.
Mm.
And the original medical examiner had to correct her autopsy. And then we were going to sue her, and she quit and left to Arizona.
Mm. Yeah.
And this happens because the same way police officers can jump from one police department to another, the medical examiners and coroners can too.
Right. Wow. Yeah, no, when I read that, and I read other folks too, like,
Hmm.
who have been killed by the police, and it's just always something's always off, right? Like,
Hmm.
this doesn't even seem to be true. And I always try to urge families, like, please get a second autopsy, please get an independent autopsy. I'm glad that y'all did that, but there's so many families that don't.
I didn't know if it wasn't for
Um,
the attorneys.
yeah,
I When your child or loved one is killed,
yeah, you're not thinking about
you're
that.
in a bubble.
Yeah.
Like you're surviving. It's survival mode to the survival mode is to the essence of humanity.
Hmm.
Like I didn't eat for 4 or 5 days. I
Yeah.
didn't sleep. You're just surviving.
Yeah.
You know, you're not thinking clearly. And
Mm.
I consider myself a pretty analytical person.
Yeah.
I break things down in my head. Nothing was functioning. You
Yeah.
don't function. You know, and so you don't think about stuff like that. The attorney had said that we need to get it done, and they got it done. At this
Mm.
point I didn't even know where my son was, where his body was. you know I just wanted to see my kid. I wanted to make sure it was him because I still didn't believe he was dead. I
Yeah.
still believed he was going to walk through that door.
Hmm.
you know and if you add on top of that insult to injury, he was driving his dad's vehicle that night, and his dad had left his wallet in the vehicle. So when he was killed, we're trying to find the car, the vehicle, because his dad didn't even have an ID
Right.
with him. So we're trying to find the vehicle. So we asked the sergeant, "Can you please give us a report, like a police report, so we can use the LoJack to locate the vehicle?" Because they wouldn't give it a location without a police report. And I remember Sergeant Ayaculo. She says, "Well, we can report the vehicle is stolen, so we could give you that report." I'm thinking to myself, but if you report the vehicle is stolen, then you're going to charge my kid with stealing a vehicle.
Right.
You know, this is 2 days after my son was killed, 3 days after my son is killed. They're telling me this, you know, and I'm like, that doesn't make sense. And I'm like, is there any way you guys can help us find the vehicle, because we need the ID. We need his wallets in there. He doesn't have a credit card. He doesn't have his ID. And she says, "Oh no, we can't do that." Do you know how we found the vehicle? The day that Friday that we went to see the videos that they were going to show us, it was all a facade. They wanted us there because they were trying to get a search warrant on the condo.
Mm.
you know For heaven's sakes, you want to go check the condo, just say, "Hey, can we come in?" It's like, it's ridiculous. But no, they had us there and they held us there, and we didn't know this. We're thinking, they're just trying to show us videos of whatever happened that night, but they
Right.
weren't. They were trying to manipulate and hold us there. So after all that, we leave, and we're heading back to the condo. And the closer we get to the condo, we notice there's helicopters. We notice there's streets closed around the condo. We're like, I wonder what's going on. We get to the condo, and they have The condo's surrounded. There's LVMPDs there. And we're trying to get into the condo because my eldest son was in Alaska and we were trying to get the car seat because this is at 1:30 in the afternoon, 2 o'clock, and my eldest son was landing at 3:30 and the car seat was inside the condo. There were four of them with guns
Mm.
drawn on me, on Renee, on my ex-husband, on my daughter, so we couldn't enter the condo.
Mm.
And my daughter's feisty, and my ex-husband is too. And they're like going at it. I'm like, y'all need to step back because they already killed Jorge Antonio. I'm trying to get in front of my daughter because they were going to shoot us if we stepped anymore. You know. And then we called the attorneys, and as we're calling the attorneys, they said, "Hey, we're over here at the federal building. What was the kind of car?" And we told him, "Oh, it's a red Chevy Avalanche." He says, "Well, we decided to come to the courthouse, to the federal building, excuse me, because we wanted to take videos of where the camera is located so we can actually try and get the video footage released." But we're parked behind the Chevy Avalanche, and there's 3 tickets on it. They're about to tow it.
Mm.
So they knew where the vehicle was. They just didn't want to tell us.
Right.
So one of the attorneys stays there with the vehicle. The other attorney comes to the condo because, we're being held at gunpoint at this point, you know, and then he gets there, and then Renee and my ex-husband go to the vehicle to get his wallet, you know. So they head over there, and then the attorney said, "Well, we need to get the vehicle, we need to take the vehicle out of here because they're going to tow it, and then you're going to have to pay for the tow fees." So the attorney said, "Well, we'll just call a tow company and we'll have it towed to the law firm because the law firm was the closest place,
Yeah.
to tow it to." We're like, "Okay." So my ex-husband got his wallet and stuff, and they towed the vehicle. Meantime, me and my daughter are at the condo waiting because they still don't have a search warrant. They're waiting for a search warrant. But at this point, the four LVMPD officers turn into CSI, turn into ATF, turn into K9, turn into all these people. I mean, we were out there for probably 4 or 5 hours.
Mm.
And then I'm telling the attorney, I'm like, just let them go into the condo. I don't understand. Just let them go into the condo. This is the procedure. This is how they do it, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, all right. So they get their search. And I said, I'm not going to continue waiting. They can do whatever. But my daughter had to go to the restroom. It was, I mean, Vegas in June,
Right.
and we're out in the middle of the sun for 4 hours. And my other son, my ex-husband and Renee went to the airport to pick up my eldest son that was arriving at 3:30, and they all went to the lawyer's office. And I'm like, let's just go to the lawyer's office, and we'll wait there until they figure out whatever they want to do in the condo. So it was hilarious. I mean, there's nothing in the condo. Obviously, we're not trying to hide anything. So it's like, all right. So what did they find? They found a phone from 7 years ago. Nothing. And the other thing I asked them was that please don't destroy the condo. Go in there. Be mindful. We're gonna be sleeping there tonight. Please don't destroy the condo. Just be careful.
Mhm.
And that was pretty much it. So probably like 8, 9 o'clock at night, we go back to the condo, and the car stayed. Like we had, because we already had 2 vehicles, we couldn't drive another one, so we drove the rental. We drove a vehicle that George had borrowed earlier that day because he didn't have a car, and the Chevy Avalanche stayed at the attorney's out there parked. And the next day, George actually wanted to go that night and go get the Chevy, and I'm like, just leave it there. It's been a long day to leave it there.
Yeah.
So then, the next time we get a call from the lawyers, and I don't know, they had helicopters and SWAT attacking the car in the lawyer's office, because they thought that there was something because they couldn't find anything in the condo,
Mm.
so they thought maybe there's something in the vehicle. And it was hilarious, the way they came at it, like the car was a live human being. Like they came at the car with guns, with the helicopters spotlit on it, and it was all caught on
Doing
the
too
attorney's,
much.
cameras because they have security. And then we're like, okay, I don't understand this, but all right. They get because they have, what is they called, when you have a camera on your in
Mm.
your car, the dash
Yeah.
cam. They have a dash cam, but they didn't even have that using. They didn't even have the little chip in there. I'm not techie, but there's little chips in there to record anything. They took the dash cam with them, but there was nothing there because it wasn't even connected.
Right.
Um, so it was just crazy,
All that, and they were the ones in the wrong.
crazy.
Like what? Yeah, that's insane. And I think so. I remember just us doing those officers' house, the going doing the protests outside the officers'
Hmm.
houses, and we talked about it on the first episode. But we did all 5 of the officers' houses
Hmm.
multiple times. Vernon Ferguson, Dan Emerton, Ryan
Hmm.
Fryman, John Squeal, Andrew Locker, and we did those houses about maybe twice for each house. And I just remember how much like they had a bunch of patrol cars, they had a helicopter come out. When we did have news come out there, the news got scared and left. They ended up arresting us. That was the last time we ever went out there. They ended up arresting us, gave us a stay out of trouble order. Yeah. So I can only imagine. And then while we were doing that, y'all had sued them
Hmm.
while we were applying pressure. So then they ended up releasing some footage, not all, because I still believe there's footage out
Oh, I
there.
do too. I think
Um,
they're still, and I think they've erased it. I think they've deleted it. I think they've done everything possible.
yeah,
Because when I was at the federal building for Jackie's trial, I asked the property manager of that building, and it was the U.S. Marshals that actually, because
yeah,
I asked who controls these cameras, and he said it's the U.S. Marshals, and the attorneys requested videos from the U.S. Marshals.
mm.
You know,
And yeah, so I don't even believe that. I don't believe that they didn't have their body cams on. Like I don't believe none of that.
I mean, what's the law
Um,
here? What's the law here on body cams?
exactly.
Any officer interacting with the public is required to have
Right.
body cam, the working body cam.
Mhm.
You're telling me there's 30 officers in the area?
And they didn't have not one on
Nothing.
them.
The shooters?
Right.
Oh no, no, because they're special.
Right. They don't need
There
them.
are basically what they are is they're sharpshooters. They're
Mm,
training. They're training officers in the sharpshooting range.
mm,
So that's what those officers were. But you're interacting with the public. You need to have a body cam.
yeah.
There's officers on top of the steps, including John Squeal. He's an LVMPD officer. Where's his body cam?
Yeah. He
When
didn't
they
have.
shot the less than
Mhm.
lethal rounds. Where are the
And
21 cameras? I mean, you're talking about the federal building, across the street, the Foley building, the
right.
corner, there's a bank, there's an appellate court at the other corner. I mean, really?
Yeah,
But you
it
tell
didn't make
me
no sense.
there's no, okay,
But when they
let's
did
believe you.
finally release the footage, whatever they gave
From the D?
us, right? It did prove what we all thought,
Yeah,
right? Like we knew he
of
didn't do
course.
that, and so from there, I know they try to pass a bill. I'm forgetting the number of the bill, but the bill was to ban residential picketing, which was basically like because we were protesting outside the houses,
At
they
officials' houses. Yep.
right, they wanted to ban that.
Hmm.
I think like the next legislative session, they try to pass a bill to make like public servants like police officers, judges,
Hmm.
all their addresses private. That one I think died as well in session.
Hmm.
But it was just ways that they were like really trying to make sure that we couldn't do what we needed to do.
It
So
was all about you, and you know that.
look, I don't take credit for it.
It's not
It
credit.
was the
You
people.
were the one there, not letting them get away with crap, and
Yeah.
that's really what got the videos released.
Yeah. I do believe like the people showing up applying pressure will
Yeah.
always move them to do what they're supposed to do. We will hold power accountable.
Hmm.
And when we start to realize like they actually don't have the power, that they work for us, we have the power.
Hmm.
And I think that's kind of what the whole campaign was around. Like we have the power, y'all. Like all power is really in the people.
Hmm.
They really aren't on nothing. So um, I guess that goes into my question. How has other families, like impacted families and other grassroots organizations helped you with the fight for justice for your son?
Well, let's step back for a minute because nothing's going to bring my kid back,
Mhm.
you know. But with what organizations like More Than a Hashtag have helped us is just the love and support. Like, I absolutely hate Vegas, you know. Yeah. Every time I fly here, I tell Renee, I'm like, have I mentioned how much I hate Vegas? But I love the community.
Mm.
I feel the love and support. And I think without that, I wouldn't have gotten through. So thank you for that.
Of course.
As far as the grassroots organizations, the boots on the ground, other impacted families, I think that we need to unite more, you
Yeah.
know. There's a lot of different organizations and each has a part in this fight, you know. And if we had everyone united, we would have those numbers and the power to keep the pressure on to the nth degree.
Right.
Because right now, and even then, 20, 30, 50, 100 people, we're very appreciative. All of our families, all impacted families are. But can you imagine if you were 1,000 people strong in front of those officers' houses?
Oh, that would have been.
The message that would have sent,
Yeah.
you know? So it would be great if we could do, during George Floyd and God rest his soul, and Breonna Taylor and so many others, Eric
Mm.
Gardner and, so many others, um, it went quiet,
Yeah.
it goes quiet. It's still happening.
Yeah. I think I said this the other day at the protest. It was the number I don't know exactly, but it was 3,600 people have been killed since George Floyd was murdered
Yeah.
in America. So
But
people
we're
are
not
still
talking about it.
dying, right?
We're
And
not
people are
talking about it.
forgetting that this is still ongoing. Like, oh, George Floyd, no, it's still ongoing. It's still happening.
It's getting worse.
Yeah, it's getting
Getting
worse.
worse because the police departments are getting more and more money.
Mhm.
They're becoming more and more militarized.
Mhm.
I mean, how many protests have we had that we've had drones over us?
Drones, snipers. One time we had a whole tactical SWAT team in the corner, and it was what 30 of us. Like
I
not.
know. I mean, what are y'all scared? I mean, I'm a grandma. What am I gonna do? Come on, you
Yeah.
guys. Why don't we use this taxpayer dollars to actually help the community?
And actually prevent the crime y'all say y'all are fighting. Like, let's put that money into resources for the community.
Correct.
Like,
Exactly.
so there's a lot that could be done with that money because also in another video we posted was LVMPD gets annually $860 million, at least from the 2023 to 2024 year, if I'm correct. It was $860 million around there annually. And that's just LVMPD, not counting Henderson, North Las Vegas, Reno Police, Sparks County, all that. This is just LVMPD. Just imagine if some of that money or most of that money went into actually like stopping crime. Like,
And mental health.
yes.
And mental health
Mhm.
because Jorge Antonio didn't have this challenge. But a lot of what we saw with impacted families was there was a mental health crisis,
Yeah.
and instead of using de escalation tactics, instead of having a medical person trained to interact with that individual having a crisis, the officers kills the person within seconds of arriving on the scene.
Mhm.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
let's invest money in that.
Yeah. And that goes to my next question is when you imagine a world without police, one where Jorge would still be here, where Percy would still be here, Christopher would be here, even George, right? What does that look like to you? And maybe Renee, you want to open this up?
Well, it would look like us not even needing to protest, right?
Let's start there. Yeah.
But even the protests that have happened, it was all peaceful
Mhm.
until cops come, and then they become aggressive
Mhm.
towards the peaceful protest.
Right.
So it's like I don't know where I don't know where there's an interaction where it where cops get called and it becomes a positive outcome.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mhm. Never
You
heard of
you
that.
had made a statistic as to how many times 911 was called,
Yeah.
and then that person that called 911 ended up dying
Yeah.
from police violence.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't the training techniques, I guess, that are being enforced in this academy are always to be in fear for your life. Don't question it, just shoot first, and then
Right.
we'll figure out how to cover it up later
Mhm.
Mhm.
based on your lack of training.
Yeah.
So
And I think that what people have been saying is like they need more training, they need better training. I'm like, they've been getting training. They've been getting that better training ever since George Floyd was killed. Like many police departments across the nation have been getting better training for bias, for discrimination, for de-escalation. They just aren't like it's not doing nothing. It's not changing the culture of policing as a whole. Um
Well, when you're giving a weapon to someone that has um, no morals, no
mhm,
ethics, believes that they're a superior species because they're a white male,
yeah.
you know, I mean, what are we expecting them to do other than kill us?
Right.
But it's our taxpayers.
Yeah.
We're paying them, you know. A world for me would be a world that we take care of each other.
Mm,
You know, a world that we don't need this. I mean, if you go to any other country, you know, they're not given all these weapons, and there's not this degree of crime.
yeah.
You know, you go to other countries, and you know, you talk to an officer's walking down the street. They have no weapons.
Yeah.
They're respected because they respect the community.
Mm,
You know, so I'm not saying, you know, we don't. We just need officers that aren't militarized. I understand that if we are at war with a country and they're shooting at us and we're shooting at them, that we need to protect ourselves as a country.
right.
But we shouldn't be at war with our own citizens.
Right. Yeah.
Well, especially because each and every police brutality, the police don't have any intel on the person they're shooting,
Correct.
Right.
right? So that person is an innocent bystander,
Mhm.
and here's a civil servant allowed to kill a human for no reason
Yeah.
and allowed to do it legally. And I don't know in at what point have we allowed this to happen? Like
Mm.
we allowed this to be okay.
Yeah. I think we get really comfortable and we don't want to be inconvenienced, which is why a lot of people don't protest or they don't speak up or they don't go out and, participate in these things is cuz we're comfortable, to be honest. We don't want to lose our comfortability. We don't want to give up Amazon. We don't want to miss out on that free delivery to our door. We don't want to stop drinking Starbucks or eating at McDonald's. Like it's easy, it's convenient.
That's all
Um
police union money.
Exactly. But a lot of people don't want to do that because it's easier for them. It's easier access.
Till a loved one of theirs is killed and murdered.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Most people don't understand until it hits them.
Hmm.
And even then, still some people are still ignorant
Yeah.
to what's really going on. I do want to ask, what would have like real safety looked like that night for everybody, including the protesters, where nobody would have lost their life?
I mean, I don't think we should have been protesting to begin with. George Floyd and all
Right.
these different people that have been killed by police should still be here today.
Right.
I think it goes back to the essence of what the laws currently are and what they're allowed to do and how they're allowed to kill us. We
Yeah.
would have no reason to protest if they weren't militarized, if they weren't like, you know, killing people for no reason. You know, it has to go back to the essence of what the whole fight in the protests and change is about. You know,
Yeah.
and that's what Juan Antonio was out there, you know, fighting for change.
But all these protests that were happening here in Vegas, none of them were violent.
Mm.
So the only people that were violent were them
Mhm.
throwing pepper balls at us,
Yeah.
corralling
Tear
people.
gas, all
I
that.
mean, and kids were there.
Yes.
Old elderly women were there.
Mhm.
Everybody has a right to protest.
Yeah.
If I'm 80 years old and I want to peacefully protest, why should I feel in danger when I'm just peacefully protesting?
Right.
Right? I just want to be heard,
Yeah.
right? So why should I feel like I'm gonna be hit by a pepper ball in my face, right? Because I just want to be heard about this issue,
Yeah.
right? So this whole time it was peaceful protest, but then they got tired of it.
Then they
The
escalated.
casinos are, oh, you're closing down streets. We're not making any money,
Mhm.
and so now you want they're pushing the police to be a little bit more aggressive to try to stop it.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's all money too.
Mhm.
Correct.
Because it's
So
stopping people's money
that's
in
how
process.
this got out of hand
Yeah.
with the police actually starting to hurt people
Yeah.
because now the casinos, oh, you're closing down our streets.
Yeah, I think I had protested, was it the night or two nights before Jorge was killed, and it was just chaos. everybody running and screaming and trying to hide from police because we were scared to get detained. They were shooting us with rubber bullets.
He was out there that night.
And
The night he died was his third night of protesting.
yeah, and so many people were experiencing that same, like, I would like, that's to me is like terrorism. Like they were literally terrorizing us. Like,
That's why he had his vest on.
yeah,
Yeah, he used to work security at Caesar's Palace. So he had been issued a one of those, what do they call those
the
vests?
tactical
The
vest.
tactical
Yeah.
vests. So he had, and he had just like a couple of days before he had just talked to his sister, and his sister was Jasmine was planning on flying on June 11th to Vegas to surprise her dad for Father's Day.
Mm,
So Jorge Antonio said to Jasmine, "Hey, when you come out, we're gonna go protesting. Do you have any equipment from West Point?" And she's like, "No, they don't let you take that stuff home." He's like, "Okay, I'll let you use my vest." Because they're hitting people with the rubber bullets, the
yeah,
less than lethal rounds, you know. So he was trying to protect his sister.
yeah,
You know, he was killed June 1st. So, Jasmine came out with us when we went. And it was a very sad Father's Day.
yeah,
And again, protesting meant I'm angry. I'm angry that this happened,
mm,
right? And I can't do anything, so I'm protesting,
yeah,
right? So instead, they want to just silence you because you can't even be allowed to be angry. You can't even be
yeah,
allowed to grieve George Floyd being, being killed like that because they just want to silence you. They just
mhm,
want you to take it and stay at home and don't say nothing. And
yeah.
and they are allowed to, they're allowed to do it.
Exactly. And also, I also want to say there is no right or wrong response for how you protest somebody's murder. Like, I'll speak for myself and more than a hashtag. We are not against people showing up and showing out, whatever that may look like, however y'all want to take that. People were really, really, really against people being violent and all this and destroying property. But to me, when you lose somebody's life, when somebody's life has been taken and stolen, there is no right or wrong way to show up. I do think that we started off very, very, very peaceful. Like we were trying to follow the rules, stay on the sidewalks, and then they came in and escalated it,
Hmm.
and then they got what they asked for. We matched their energy after a while. So we call it uprisings. We don't call it riots. We don't call it we call it uprisings. Cuz the people, they wanted to be heard and to be seen, and protest to me isn't something where you call the police like, "Hey, can you escort us, and we're going to go down this route." And that's not a protest to me. That's just a parade.
Right.
It's a parade with permission. So,
Yeah, no rights have ever been given peacefully.
exactly.
No rights have ever been
The
given
founding
peacefully.
of this country was not
Come on.
peaceful.
Yeah. I
You
mean,
know,
civil rights did not come because we asked.
right. I mean, they murdered and raped and pillaged the indigenous folks to take this country. Like, none of it has been peaceful, and then they get upset when us, well, the community, are violent with them. But where do you think we got it from?
When we say no, enough. Enough is enough. It
Right.
stops.
Exactly. Um so I want to ask you guys, what does justice mean to you guys right now at this moment?
God, nothing's gonna bring Juan Antonio back. Nothing's gonna bring any of our loved ones back. The only thing we can do is move forward and try to get this to stop. Juan Antonio signed said change, and we need to make changes so that our loved ones stop dying. No dollar figure, no nothing is gonna shut us up. Is
Mm,
going to satisfy us. Is going to give us justice. The only thing that would appease me, you know, would be to see these killings, these murders stop.
yeah.
That's it. And it's not just here in Vegas, it's nationwide.
Yeah.
I mean, I was in Jackson. It's same things happening in Mississippi. I was speaking, the squad was there, and I'm speaking at the steps. As they're trying to appeal their their verdict. And it's happening everywhere.
Yeah.
So the only thing that it's going to appease me is going to be for this to stop.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter trial, it doesn't matter officers getting convicted, it doesn't matter if the officers get the death penalty.
Yeah.
It's not about just my kid. He was one. thousands.
Yeah.
It needs to stop going forward.
Mhm.
That's justice to me.
Well, I think it's about these laws being passed and changing these laws where the officers can't just hold all the information.
Mm.
It needs to be more transparent. It needs to be where they have to go to trial for every single death that they cause.
Mm.
It can't just be one sided. We're supposed to take their word for it. There needs to be laws where as soon as they kill somebody,
Yeah.
there needs to be a full on trial for anybody that kills anybody because everybody has the right to live.
I mean, but like if I go and kill somebody, I'm going to I have to go to trial.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Whether it was self defense, whatever the reason was, I still have to go to trial. I still have to go through that process. And if we're going to talk about equality and everybody's the same, then we need to make sure everybody's the same.
Right.
Like period.
It's ending qualified immunity because that's what protects the officers.
Yeah.
The officers are protected under qualified immunity, which means they say I'm in fear for my life, so I have, I have the right to shoot because I'm scared.
Yeah.
Now, last month, SCOTUS did the Supreme Court recently passed that they can't use that excuse anymore.
Mm.
But as of right now, I haven't seen any changes.
They still killing people.
Still killing people.
Which brings me to my point of maybe the laws changing isn't what's going to get us to where we need to be. My 2 cents. My 2 cents. I think they can help to a certain extent. But for the change that we want to see, like ending it, period, no more killings, no more murders, there's got to be something more.
We need to take back what's ours.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, how do you guys want Jorge's name to live on? Like, how do you want his name to live on through the community? Like, what needs to be happening? How can we support you to make sure that is, we have followed through with that?
He wouldn't have. Juan Antonio was just the kid that wouldn't want to make anything about him.
Mm.
You know. So whenever we have events, whenever we have anything going on, we always want to bring impacted families so they could come and talk and tell their story, because that's what he was about. So it's really hard. That question isn't something I could answer, because it's just not who he was. He would not want to be the center of this. He would not want his face to be the reason for change. He would just want to be a catalyst. But it, they're the way they're killing black people is not the same way they're killing white people or Hispanic people.
Yeah.
So I think he would just want to be of support to make the changes happen.
Absolutely. And I think Jorge's story and how we supported that was definitely a catalyst for the things that we're doing now.
Mhm.
And the stories that we've picked up and helped with other families. Yeah, maybe it's the better way to phrase it would be like, how would you want his story to live on? Like how do you want that to be shared?
That his sacrifice um, was one of many stepping stones that made change happen.
Is there anything that you want to say to anybody listening to this podcast right now?
Love on each other. You never know when that last hug is the last hug. When that last I love you is the last I love you. Take care of each other. One of Jorge Antonio's last posts on Facebook before he went to protest was, I know people are tired and passionate, but don't forget to take care of yourself. We're always fighting to make changes. We're always fighting to protect, to defend. But we also need to step back to make sure we recharge our batteries to not burn out. And I'm looking at you, Desiree.
Don't look at me.
I'm looking at you. So I think that just make sure you take care of yourself. The post he posted right before that one, do not cower in the face of revolution. Revolution is at your doorstep. What are you going to do?
Mm.
You're going to sit back and let them continue killing our loved ones? Are you going to step up and do something about it?
Mm.
Are you a coward? Don't cower. It's the time.
Yeah.
The time for us to take back what's ours.
He might have been a poet.
Yeah.
No, those words are powerful. I mean, I got it tatted. You got it tatted too. Got
Oh,
it
we
tatted on
did,
my
yeah.
arm, right here. One of my first big tattoos for
Mhm.
sure. Yeah,
It's on your
definitely.
shirt. It's on the back of the More Than a Hashtag
Yes,
shirt.
it is on the back of the More Than a Hashtag shirt. Man, I Jorge's story matters for so many different reasons. Anytime anybody is killed by the police, we always see it as a failure on behalf of the department, no matter what the reason may have been, the justification. His story matters because um, our right to protest, our right to speak up, whether it was given by these white men, we always have that right. It is literally our God-given right. It is our it's in our spirits to speak up. Um, and also there's Second Amendment rights. We have the right,
Mhm.
regardless of whatever white man says and what amendment, we have the right to defend ourselves. Um, and I think Jorge's story was so important to me because I told y'all, like, before he was killed, I was like, why would you bring a gun to a protest?
Mhm.
But then I was like, after he was killed, and I researched and I seen like everything happening, I was like, no, that's what we should be doing. We need to protect ourselves. So, because of that, we created the JAG gun education program to educate people about the history of armed resistance, the history of what Black and Brown folks have been doing to protect ourselves. Now we're getting into more of the physical, like how do we arm ourselves? And this program has been ongoing since 2023. It is now quarterly. Hopefully, we have built the infrastructure to hold it monthly, like we were once doing. Um, but yeah, we're always doing those. So I would tell the folks listening, like, if you're interested in learning how to arm yourselves to defend yourselves, please come join that. I also want to say that we did create a whole documentary about Jorge, who he was, his story, his family's personal memories of him, and that is on YouTube. We will put that link in the caption. And I also want to open it up to y'all to talk about the Daubert hearing and then the
Mhm.
upcoming trial, because that's what we really need folks to come and support.
Right. So the next thing we have coming up is actually on my mother's birthday, September
Mm.
19th, 2025. And that's called a Daubert hearing. The Daubert hearing is basically because the officers were denied qualified immunity, which means they can't use the "I'm in fear for my life, that's why I killed him," excuse. Um, we were granted the motion for summary judgment, and now what they're trying to do is they're trying to get rid of our expert witnesses. So
Mm.
because there was no body cams, because in front of the federal building none of the cameras were working, in front of the Foley bankruptcy court none of the cameras were working, the bank, gosh, none of the cameras were
Right.
working, appellate court none of the cameras were working,
Body cams are on.
nothing, body cams weren't on. There were witnesses, there were actually eyewitnesses that have nothing to do with our family, we've never met them before,
Right.
they're nothing to do with the police officers, they're independent witnesses,
Right.
um, that did their depositions and told the truth of what they saw and how they saw it and how the police were militarized and how they were in fear for their lives because of the police shooting at them.
Mm.
You know, and we have expert witnesses as far as we have what's it called? Medical pathologists that can tell you, no, this was an exit wound, this is an entry
Right.
wound, this was the trajectory that it took through the body, and we also have police experts, officers that were officers once that no longer believe in being an officer, that understand that officers lie
Mm.
and have chose differently in their career and chose to tell the truth.
Good cops quit their jobs.
There are no good cops on the force because they're no longer there, easy peasy. So we have police expert witnesses that have been, police experts for 20, 25 years,
Yeah.
So the Dauber hearing is their last ditch effort. The attorneys on the police side to try to discredit them so that they can't speak in front of a jury, you
Mm.
know? So that's what the Dauber hearing is about. After that, October 20th, 2025 is when trial will begin, you know. And it's going to start at 8:30 in the morning, courtroom 7C, Judge Bulware, and both days, September 19th, 2025 and October 2025, it's at 333 Las Vegas Boulevard. I don't know.
Yeah.
The federal building,
Lord D. George Federal Court.
there you go.
There you
That's
go.
where it's going to
Look
be
it
at.
up.
So, yeah, just, we're just asking for support.
Yeah.
I mean, if it were up to me, they would be protesting outside where the judge would be hearing everything inside, the jurors would be hearing everything inside. I mean, it happened during the public fact finding review, you remember? So
I
to me,
do.
yeah,
Let's
that was
let's do it
crazy.
again.
Yeah,
Oh, it's always a good time.
so, that we're just asking community support,
Yeah.
we try to support as much as we can, and we're just asking for people to
Yeah.
come out and stand with us.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I'm losing my voice, but I was protesting yesterday.
Weren't we all? Tap in with more than a hashtag to figure out how you guys can come support the trial, the Daubert hearing. I'm not gonna say too much on this because they don't need to know our business, but we will be organizing for this trial. And it's super important that we have the community on our side and we show them that it's not just y'all and it's not just the family. We got the families back too. It's not just gonna be the family in the courtroom, it's gonna be us with them. Um, so I'm inviting y'all too to join the fight for abolition, not just in theory, but in solidarity with families like Jorge's. Because there's so many more impacted families here in Las Vegas, in Nevada. And I also want to add, like, can you explain the significance of the avocados? Because everybody's always like, why is there avocados on this?
Oh,
They always asking. So
so Juan Antonio was a vegetarian,
mhm.
so he would eat 3 to 4 avocados a day. And when my daughter was and she was finishing Beast, which is basically the boot camp, he flew in from the West Coast and I flew in from Orlando, and it was a weekend, and we were going to her graduation. And he says, "Mom, I want to get a tattoo." But my son had no tattoos. Like, he had no tattoos. It's not that he was scared of getting tattoos. He just really, to him, to put something like that, it had to signify something grand,
Yeah.
And he just hadn't had any tattoos. So he says, "Mom, I want to get a tattoo." And I'm like, "Sweetheart, no, I have tattoos. I have tattoos." I'm like, "Sweetheart, what do you want a tattoo?" And he says, "I want to get an avocado." And I'm like, "An avocado?" And he's like, "Yeah," And I'm like, "Sweet, but that's like an innie and an outie, because it's got the little pit." He's like, "Mom, we're gonna get an avocado tattoo." And we looked, God, because I mean, if anybody knows where West Point's at, it's in the middle of nowhere. It's their little towns. We could not find a place. We could not
Dang.
find a place that would do two simple tattoos. We couldn't find a place. And so when he passed away, I added, and I don't know if you guys could see it, but
Yep, they can.
I added the tattoo here. This is the, I guess, the outie because it's got the little pit, and then the other half is in is right here. And I did it to my left hand because he was a lefty. And then down my whole arm, it starts up here, is the saying, "I know people are tired and passionate, but don't forget to take care of yourself." So sometimes you'll see on social media, usually like whenever I post something, I always end it with
Yeah.
the prayers. I end it with an avocado. The green heart is the sustainability,
Mhm.
because he was so into sustainability and recycling and all that stuff. And then the fist is just the power to all of us, power to the people, to actually have the strength and the unity to make
Yeah.
the changes necessary for our survival.
Yeah.
you know. So that's kind of what that
Yeah.
means.
Thank you for sharing that. Does anybody want to add anything before I close this out?
Thank you guys so much. We appreciate everything that, like, I'm looking at you, and since the beginning, I've seen you grow so much, and I'm so proud of you. And I'm so proud that we are able to support one another and be there for one another. And if there's anything I could ever do to support, I know I live far. but I try as much as I can, as much as my pocketbook allows me, I try. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you to you. Thank you for the community. Um, I'm sorry to the impacted families that came after.
Yeah. Well, thank you for allowing us to hold space for Jorge and always continue to say his name. Some families, are a little bit more closed off to that. So I do appreciate you for like letting us continue to say his name and continue to tell his story because it is important. And he really is a catalyst for change. And because of him, there's gonna be so much more we can do to help people. Like he taught me like how to show up in community and to be there for people. He taught me how to show up for families. He taught me how to fight for change in a sustainable way because I was burning myself out
Hmm.
for a very long time. But it's arguably still happening. But I always look at when I'll be looking. I'm like, okay. I look at his posts. I look, he taught me a lot. So I take every lesson that I've learned from him through you guys with me.
And how to arm yourself and protect yourself.
Exactly. Very much so. He definitely is the reason why I got my first gun. And why I advocate for others, specifically black women, to get guns. So um I'm just gonna close this out with, we remember Jorge, we fight for Jorge, and we build a world where Jorge would still be here. Thank you guys for watching. Bye.